was.
Some dangers don't announce themselves. They just wait for you to look away. This is one driver's account of the passenger who should never have existed. The man in my back seat had no booking, but the app showed a confirmed fare with his face. I had accepted the ride 4 minutes earlier, watched the pin drop on Callaway Street, and pulled up to find him already standing at my passenger door before I had come to a complete stop. That detail did not register until later. At the time, I just unlocked the doors. That is the part I keep returning to. I just unlocked the doors. He settled in behind me, not beside me. Center seat, close enough that I could hear him breathing through his nose in a slow, deliberate rhythm, and the air that came with him was stale and faintly chemical, like fabric softener applied to cover something older. I told myself that was nothing. People sit where they want. The destination on the app read a storage facility off Route 9, 11 miles out. No unit number. No additional notes. I pulled away from the curb. The first wrong thing I could not explain away was the seatbelt. I heard it click. Then I heard it click again, 2 seconds later, and when I glanced in the mirror, his hands were resting open on his knees and the belt was across his chest. I do not know what clicked the second time. I kept driving. He did not look at his phone. He did not look out the window. He watched the back of my headrest with the patient attention of someone who has already decided how something ends. That quality, the stillness of a conclusion already reached, was what I could not shake loose and could not name while it was happening. At the 4.2-mile mark, I hit a red light on Birch, and I felt the weight in the car shift. Not dramatically, the subtle lean of someone moving their center of gravity forward. I put my right hand on the door handle and left it there. He spoke once before that. Quietly, without any particular feeling, he said I should stay on this road and not use the highway. I had not signaled for the highway. The app had not suggested the highway. There was no reason for him to say it, except that he had been watching my hands on the wheel long enough to anticipate what I was about to do. I was about to take the on-ramp. I had decided the 30 seconds before he spoke. I stayed on the surface road. My phone was mounted on the dash, and I pressed the emergency share button in the Rideshare app with my thumb while pretending to adjust the volume. The app confirmed the share with a small chime. He said, still quietly, that I should put both hands on the wheel. He could see the dash mount from where he sat. He could see exactly what my thumb had done. I wanted to speak aloud, to call out to a dispatcher, to say anything, but I could not make myself do it with his breath that close behind my ear. I put both hands on the wheel. In the mirror, I watched him settle back, not tense, not calculating a next move. He relaxed, the way a person relaxes when something has gone exactly as planned, and that stillness was worse than anything he could have said. The storage facility appeared on the right at 9:42 p.m., a long, low building behind a chain-link fence with one overhead light burning yellow at the entrance. The gate was already open. I stopped at the curb before the turn-in and did not move. He did not move either. We sat there for 11 seconds. I counted. Then his door opened and he stepped out, and he walked through that gate without looking back, and the gate rolled shut behind him on its own. I drove until I found a gas station with people in the lot, and I sat under the lights shaking. Police made contact within the hour. They went to the storage facility. I was told only that they found items inside consistent with the restraint and transport of a person. The booking account had been created that evening using a stolen payment method. The profile photo was pulled from a real person's public social media. I have not driven since. The app still shows the fare as completed. What I keep coming back to is that center seat, not beside me, behind me, as close as he could get without climbing into my lap. I have driven a lot of miles alone at night since then, and alone is not always what it turns out to be. The seat behind me was empty, but something in it was pressing forward hard enough to bow the headrest toward my skull. 11:23 p.m. I had just merged onto the bypass, no other cars. The kind of straight, dark road where your headlights only reach so far. I checked the mirror. Nothing there. Checked again. The headrest was visibly deformed, curved toward me like something was leaning its full weight against it from behind. I had picked up a single passenger 40 minutes earlier. A man, mid-40s, quiet, asked to be dropped at a storage facility on the edge of the county. I dropped him. I watched him walk through the gate. I drove away. I know I drove away because I remember the gravel under my tires, the gate shrinking in my mirror, the map rerouting me back to the highway, but the headrest was still bowing. And then I heard breathing. Not faint, close. Measured and slow, like someone who had been doing it quietly for a long time and had just stopped bothering to hide it. I did not brake. Braking felt wrong. Whatever was behind me, I did not want it to know that I knew. I kept my speed at 58 and I moved my right hand off the wheel and down to the door pocket where I keep a window punch. My fingers found it. I held it. I said, out loud, casually as I could manage, that I thought I had missed my turn. Just narrating, filling air. The breathing did not change. I pulled up the app with my left thumb and triggered the emergency share function, which sends your GPS coordinates to a contact. My sister. I do not know if she saw it that night. I have not asked her. At 11:31 p.m., I took the exit toward a 24-hour fuel station I knew had outside lighting and a staffed booth. The pressure on the headrest shifted when I turned. It moved with the turn, like a body adjusting its balance. My neck was 6 inches from the back of that seat. Less, probably. I have measured it since. 5.5 inches from the headrest to the back of where my head sits when I drive. I pulled into the station fast, too fast, and stopped diagonally under the main overhead light. I opened my door and stepped out in one motion and turned around. The back seat was empty. I stood there. The rear door on the driver's side was resting against the frame, unlatched the way it looks when someone has pulled it shut from inside without engaging the lock. The car's sensor reads that door as closed when it reaches the frame, latched or not, which means the interior light never triggered, which means I had no way to know. The attendant came out to ask if I needed help. I told him I was fine. I walked the perimeter of the car. Nothing. No one in the lot. The road behind me was empty in both directions. I've thought about the storage facility gate. I watched him walk through it. But a facility like that, unmanned after 8 p.m., the gate arms respond to any registered fob. It would take about 4 seconds to badge in, let the arm drop behind you, then turn and walk back along the fence line to the road, where my car was idling while I updated the trip log. 4 seconds. I was looking at my phone. I still drive. Different hours now, and I do not take trips that end at unstaffed locations after dark. What I have not been able to explain is that the storage facility he asked to be dropped at had been closed for renovation since March. The listing was outdated. No active unit was registered to anyone by his name. I called to confirm that. What I cannot confirm is where he went, or whether he ever left. I still don't know what made that dent in the headrest, and I never went back to check if it was still there. The next fare I took that night was stranger in a different way. Not violent, not threatening, just wrong in a way I couldn't place until it was too late to matter. The passenger gave me his destination, and it was the address I had just picked him up from. I repeated it back to him. He said yes. Same street, same number. He wanted me to drive him in a complete circle and drop him exactly where he had climbed in. I pulled away from the curb anyway. It was 1:14 in the morning, a Tuesday, and I had been on the road since just after 9. My eyes were dry, and my coffee had gone cold somewhere around midnight. The neighborhood was one of those half-commercial, half-residential stretches where the streetlights are spaced too far apart and the storefronts go dark early. The pavement had that wet, reflected look even though it hadn't rained, and the air coming through my cracked window carried the smell of old concrete and something faintly sweet, like a restaurant exhaust fan still bleeding warmth into the night. I could see him in the rear view. He was sitting directly in the center of the back seat, not leaning against either door. hands resting flat on his thighs. He was looking straight ahead, not at his phone, not at the window. Straight ahead at the back of my headrest, there was something very still about him. Not relaxed still, deliberate still, like a person who had decided exactly how to hold themselves and was committed to it. I told myself some people do that. Walk a loop, clear their head. Maybe he just wanted the company of another person for 10 minutes without having to explain himself. I've had worse. The ride was about 4 minutes, end to end. I made the turns and tried to keep the radio low, some late-night talk station murmuring just below the point of being understood. He didn't speak again. The silence had a weight to it that I kept trying to ignore. When I pulled up to the pin, I double-checked the map. It was identical to the pickup point. Same building, same red awning, the fabric of it slightly frayed along one edge, catching the light in a way I somehow recognized from 4 minutes earlier. I put the car in park and said we were here. He didn't move for a moment. The stillness stretched out. Then he leaned forward, close enough that I could see him clearly in the mirror, and he said quietly that he knew. Not surprised, not grateful, just confirming something he already understood. He got out and stood on the sidewalk. I watched him in the mirror as I pulled away. He was facing the building but not moving toward it, just standing there on the pavement, looking at the door. I got a new ping about 90 seconds later. I almost didn't check the address. When I did, my thumb stopped. Same corner, same pin, exact building, different account name, different profile photo, but the pickup marker was sitting on the precise spot I'd just left. I declined it and drove 4 blocks before I pulled over and sat there with the engine running. The heater ticking quietly, the street ahead of me completely empty in both directions. I told myself it was a glitch in the app, a duplicate request, someone nearby who happened to want a car. I ran through every reasonable explanation I could construct, and they all held just long enough to feel believable. Then they didn't. He hadn't been going anywhere. He was watching me drive. I drove home with my location sharing off. I kept checking the mirror the whole way back, and every time I did, the back seat was empty. But I kept checking anyway. The account that sent the second request had a 5-star rating and 47 completed trips. I looked it up the next morning. It had been created that same night at 1:09 a.m., 5 minutes before I arrived at the first pickup. He was already waiting before I accepted the ride. I don't know what he was waiting for. I'm not sure it's over. 3 nights behind the wheel. 3 things that don't sit right. The corner one stayed with me longer than it should have, if I'm honest. As always, stay safe out there. I'll see you next time.